Hey booktubers, Lisa here. Today we're going to be talking about and reviewing Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. Shall we make a start? If you watched my October TBR video, this book was missing. And the reason for that, FabFitFun just announced this as their, I think it's their fall pick for their book club. So I picked this up and gave this a read. It was pretty fast in terms of finishing this book start to finish. They also have, I listened to the audiobook on Audible from Amazon, and then I followed along in this book. And the performance was really good. They had a whole bunch of different characters and different voices. The performance was awesome. And they had a bunch of, it's based in the UK, so they had like the UK accent and all that, which if you are American, you probably like the UK accent. So I thought that was fun and interesting to like listen to the characters and the dialogue. So to step back and kind of give you a short little synopsis of the book. So there's going to be spoilers, so if that's a thing for you, please come back, read the book, and then listen to this video. There is a girl named Sapphire Maddox. She has this therapist she's been going to for a number of years named Roan. He moves to this house while his other house is being renovated, so he lives there. His neighbor across the street is this guy named Owen. Owen is a school teacher. He has recently been put on leave from his school because there are some allegations of misconduct with some of the female students, which he very much is denying. And on Valentine's night, Sapphire Maddox disappears, and then the book is this thriller. Okay, who did it? And kind of the story is told in like flashbacks. So overall, the plot was interesting. There were lots of different ideas and concepts going on. They had incels, which I didn't know a whole lot about, which that part was interesting. But I do think that was on Law & Order SVU. I want to say there was an episode. If you guys know what episode of Law & Order SVU that was, stick in the comments, because I've seen every Law & Order SVU episode, like all the episodes. And I want to say there was one where they talked about incels. But this book, it felt like a kaleidoscope of already been done ideas. This wasn't like a very unique book in my opinion. There was this movie like years ago by Kevin Spacey. It was called The Life of David Gale, and it was almost the exact same situation with Owen, which was he was falsely accused of a student of inappropriate conduct. The student had actually set him up, and it was like a false allegation. And the other part, the Sapphire Maddox kind of stalking her psychologist, that's been done very recently. Netflix has this series, it's called You. There is this stalker guy, Joe, and he was a little bit dark. So when you kind of it was like a kaleidoscope of these already been done ideas. They're interesting ideas, but they weren't unique. I mean, it was kind of interesting, so it wasn't a boring book in my opinion. But did I say like, oh wow, this is like an earth-shattering book that is like my #1? No. I also felt that the writing wasn't as strong as, say, Philip Pullman or, you know, one of my favorite authors, or even some of the other 5-star books that I've read lately. Like Great Gatsby, it's not of that caliber. It isn't like so intricately woven with so many double meanings and things like that. It wasn't like that. It wasn't this, you know, literary icon, but it wasn't like horribly boring. That's why I personally would give it a 3-star. I did not like the ending at all, because we find out Sapphire Maddox, she was abused as a child, and this guy, we find out that he's responsible for some of the things that are going on in the book. But at the end, it was like, oh, but what about the last 2 pages or page and a half? We're like, well, what about this other guy? Like, why did you put that in the book? Like, it was so poorly done. I get, like, every author wants to have a twist at the end. Like, that's the thriller, right? They want this twist. It was executed so poorly. It was like, please, you should have just cut out the last page and a half of the book. Just leave well enough alone. You don't have to copy every other author. But I don't think this author knows how to have original ideas. At least I didn't see that in this book. You know, and I've heard, you know, she has this big fan base. People love the author. I didn't get it from this book. I didn't see, oh, this is an author that I'm just dying to read her next book, because there wasn't many original ideas in this one. Maybe she had a better look in her other books, but this one I was like, you need to have some original ideas, some original thoughts. Not every ending has to be a twist ending, because if it's not executed well, just skip it. Like, that part was just so frustrating, and I was thinking a 3-star, but maybe it's even a 2-star, because just that twist was, I'm so upset about just how poorly that was executed. Just like, leave well enough alone. The thing that made me most excited about that she didn't really talk that much about was, and it probably was not much of this book, but it was Owen Pick was talking about, they were saying, hey, you have to go to this training, this reprogramming training, or we're gonna fire you. And he said, no thanks, I'd rather be sacked. And I was like, wanted to jump through the book and onto the page, like, no, don't ever quit your job, because I just know so many friends and family who are very confident because, you know, the situation's not going well at work, and despite what I say to them, against my, you know, professional advice, they quit their job, and they're like riding high on that momentum of like, I told them off. And then they think at that time, oh, I'm gonna get a new job in like 2 weeks. This is gonna be easy. It's not gonna be so tough. I'm gonna, you know, just flourish, and everything's gonna be great because I got rid of this problem in my life. And then it comes to find out, you know, it's very difficult to find a new job. It's so much harder than they ever thought possible. And I thought, with Owen Pick, how are you gonna find a new job? You have these allegations hanging over you. I don't know what it's like being a teacher in London, but I'm assuming like the schools know each other. They're probably gonna pick up the phone and say, do you know this Owen Pick guy? Well, yeah, sure, of course. Well, what have you heard about him? Oh, well, there's rumors that X, Y, and Z. And they're gonna say, oh, well, we don't want this guy at our school. I'm like, how is he ever gonna find a new job? I didn't understand. Like, I felt so bad for him in that second. But I feel bad for everybody who quits their job because they're just in such a bad environment, or you know, it's gotten to the point where they just don't want to be there anymore. But it takes so long to find a new job. I know like so many people who have thought, okay, well, I'll just quit and I'll find a new job in, you know, 2 weeks, maybe month tops. And then 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, they're still looking for a job. Or, you know, they had to take any job that they could, but it's a 2-hour commute when they used to only commute, you know, 10, 20 minutes. It's like, don't do it. And I was happy that they didn't have something like perfectly fall into place for him, because it's like, oh, I'm going to do consulting, and then nothing happened with that. And then he ended up going back to his job. So I was happy that at least that piece was realistic, not just to tell everybody, okay, if you don't like your job, just quit, because it's so much harder, I think, for most people than they would imagine. I have known people who have said, oh, my former employer told me that if I ever want to come back, they always have a position for me. Then they quit their job that they hate. They ask their new one, you know, their former employer, and then it's, oh, we're on headcount freeze. We can't hire you. Sorry about your luck. And it was like, you know, I just quit my job and I don't have anything. I can't rely on anything. So that was the piece that I felt most strongly about in this book. That should tell you something. It wasn't that earth-shattering, but it is a fun read. I think FabFitFun probably did a good pick for this. I'll probably read another Lisa Jewell just to see, you know, if this was kind of like a miss in her writing, if it was just, you know. And I think the short writing style, it would have been better if it was like towards the end of the book, because there's like a ramp up where you're like, okay, who did it? And they have lots of dialogue, and you're like, oh, I just want to figure it out. And some of those short sentences work better in the last half of the book, but in the front half, I think it was a disservice. But I know she has a big fan base, and I'll definitely give her other books a try. Let me know if you have read her other books, which ones you recommend. Drop me a comment below. If you love brutally honest book reviews and all things books, make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss anything. I'm Lisa of Troy. Peace.